In this video, it is part 4 of the 10 out of 10 movies in my collection series. Hey, it's me, AP, aka Mr. Movie Cheer, and welcome back to another video. So, 10 out of 10 movies, part 4 now. As I've done these videos before, so, I mean, what is a 10 out of 10 movie for me? I've said it before, but 10 out of 10 movie for me, it's got to be a great story, it's got to be, have great character work, great acting, good music. It's got to have everything. I think it's just got to be just something like automatically you look at the collection, you're like, yeah, that is a 10 out of 10 movie. I think you just know the movies in your collection. So I've got 6 movies to discuss in this video. Let's get to the movies. So the first movie I'm going to discuss is Lethal Weapon, starring Mel Gibson and Danny Glover. The very first Lethal Weapon movie. A buddy cop movie, action. I think Lethal Weapon is like action, and it's definitely got elements of comedy. But I wouldn't say it's like a comedy movie. But it's like a buddy cop adventure, not an adventure, a buddy cop movie. But Lethal Weapon, I love the Lethal Weapon series. Lethal Weapon series is probably one of my favorite movie franchises. Definitely up there with the likes of like Star Wars. Not quite Star Wars level, but I mean it is just. I think it's just a great series. I really enjoy the movies. And the first one we have Riggs and Murtaugh, and basically Riggs is kind of like this bit of like a wild character played by Mel Gibson, and he gets teamed up with Murtaugh, who's like nearing retirement, played by Danny Glover, and he's a bit more like I would say more civilized compared to Riggs, and basically they put them together, join them up as like as cops, as a team, as partners, and then you see them going on this story and taking down the bad guys basically. And it's just a really good movie, 80s movie. It's got like a big 80s vibe to it now. I suppose if you're watching this for the first time, you'd be like, this looks like an 80s movie, but I still enjoy it. I think it's great. I think it's got a really cool soundtrack as well. I think Eric Clapton does the music on this, or he does like the majority of the music. Really, I just think it's a great action movie. If you're into action movies and you've never seen this one, trust me, it's a 10 out of 10 movie. Next on my list of 10 out of 10 movies, it is Fast and Furious 5, also known as Fast 5, starring Vin Diesel, Paul Walker, and Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. That is right, the People's Champ. This is the 5th movie in the franchise, in the mainline franchise anyway, and it is just so much fun, this movie. It's so entertaining. It's basically, to sum it up, this movie, there's a big heist that they do in Brazil, robbing a bank, and for me, this is the movie that changed the Fast and the Furious franchise from being just like an average movie franchise to what it is now. This is the movie what done it for me, because this is a game changer. I like the rest of the Fast and Furious ones and the ones before this, but I think this is the movie I can just go and watch this in the collection, because it is just a great movie. Just an overall great. I don't feel like you have to watch the early ones. I think you can watch this for the first time and be like, I'm all in. I'm all in on this movie. It's got everything. It's entertaining. It's got great action scenes. I mean, the action scenes in this, the set pieces of the choreography, the set pieces of what the heist is. It's so much, it's so entertaining to watch. You're watching, and you're like, this is super cool to watch. It's absolutely awesome. I think the addition of Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, in here as well was a big addition into this franchise. I think it worked well for both parties, because I think for this is a game-changing movie for The Rock. This is where he kind of makes, because he was doing movies for a couple of years, and it didn't feel like he was making massive gains in Hollywood, but I felt like this was the one where he made his name, and he was the big A-list star in Hollywood. And I also think it worked well for that franchise, because I think they needed someone like that, another big character in the opposite Vin Diesel. It's kind of like a duel for Vin Diesel, who's kind of this bulky, big, strong guy, and I think it works well for both parties, the franchise and for Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson as well. But yeah, an absolutely great movie. I just love it. I love this movie. I think it's so much joy. You know, I talk about movie cheer a lot. This is a movie that definitely gives me movie cheer. It's a 10 out of 10 movie from the collection behind me, and it makes me smile when I watch it. Next up, I have got Guardians of the Galaxy. Yeah, this one is a Marvel movie, the MCU, the first one really to take place in space, in this like cosmic side of the MCU. And as a big fan of like stuff like Star Wars, sci-fi in general, this was just, it was a surprise to me how good it was, but it also wasn't, because the trailers were really hyping this up, and the trailers looked magnificent at the time. I remember them trailers with that Hooked on a Feeling song, and the trailers, you know, really talk about, I talk about like good trailers sometimes, and certain trailers really I can think back to over the past couple of years, like in more recent times, like the Force Awakens ones, they were great. The Guardians of the Galaxy marketing team, who put together the trailers and the marketing team for this movie, for a property that no one knew anything about, myself included, they made a lot of buzz with the trailers, and they made trailers that were like inspiring. And honestly, I've seen trailers since that have kind of like took that sort of method of using like rock songs and like songs from like the 80s, 90s, popular songs, and use them in. It feels like they started a trend with this. Maybe there was other movies before that, but it feels like they started that modern trend of using like songs like that in trailers, and it works really well. And it is just a really fun movie, an entertaining movie. It's a comedy, action, science fiction story. You got this like bandit of criminals basically, and they get put together to save the universe against Ronan, the villain of the piece here. And it's just a really cool ride of a space adventure. This coming together of these like anti-heroes, and I think it's just so much fun. This film, it's just a wild ride of fun all the way through, and the music throughout is just makes me just go, wow, this is it. They just got it to a T, got it to an absolute T. It's just a top film. The next movie I am going to discuss is The Muppets, starring Jason Segel, Amy Adams, and Chris Cooper. Now, I will say, I've watched the Muppets, a few different Muppets movies over the years, and I've always enjoyed them, but this is the one. This is like the modern reboot of Muppets movies, more like recent reboot of them, and this was under the Disney banner at the time. And this movie just caught me off guard because it was just so good. It's a musical. There's a lot of musical numbers in there. First, I'm going to talk about the musical numbers. The music for this, all like a majority are like original songs, and they're really great songs. Listen, if you've never listened to the soundtrack and you maybe don't want to check out the movie first, check out some of the songs because they are really catchy, and just like really just kind of like uplift you, the songs. I feel that way anyway when I listen to this movie, when I listen to the soundtrack. But the story basically is the Muppets have all kind of like dispersed, and they're going to get the Muppets like theatre is going to get knocked down unless they raise so much money. So they get the crew back together, they get the Muppets back together for like doing one show to raise the money, and that's the concept of the story. And it's just a great story. You got Jason Segel, who's like the human character in there, and he has his brother is a Muppet as well, or is a puppet, and he kind of like always wanted to be a Muppet growing up. And you see then this story of them kind of like intermingling and kind of like coordinating the Muppets revival. And then you see the one of the best scenes is with Animal when they go recruiting all the Muppets all over the world, and they see like Animal's the drummer guy, and he's like doing like therapy to calm himself down, and he can't mention drums. And I think there's a scene where Jack Black is in with Animal, and he's like, "Don't mention the drum word" and stuff like that. But it's a really great movie to watch, a really easy watching movie, but yeah, a really uplifting, fun movie at the same time. I think it's got all great elements. I think it's a 10 out of 10 movie. Definitely, for me, the best Muppets movie, and I think there is some great Muppets movies out there, but I think this is a top tier one for me. 10 out of 10 movie for sure from my collection behind me. So the next movie I want to discuss is Star Wars: The Force Awakens. This is a movie I was so hyped for. I bought this ticket in advance, like, for this movie at least, like, more than a month in advance, and it must have been a couple of months in advance, and I was so excited. This was like one of the things where I was just like, it was like this was coming out around Christmas time, and I was just so pumped. I was like, yeah, Star Wars coming out. And when them first trailers hit, I was so excited. And I watched this movie and I absolutely loved it. I thought it was a great movie. Big Star Wars fan. It had the feel of them original movies. It had that feel, and it just really reignited my love for that franchise. And it's not like it's not like I dislike the prequels. I just feel like there was just something about the prequels that wasn't the originals. The originals were the best. And I think a lot of it is like the practical effects, the lack of. I mean, they did use practical effects in the prequels, but not to the extent of the original movies. And then in Force Awakens, they went back to like all the sort of like old school filmmaking techniques and more practical effects. Sure, they do still use CGI as a big part of this movie, but I think you can notice the difference on screen for this movie. And I think what they did as well, having the original characters come back, having that connection to the original trilogy was a great part of it. Having Luke Skywalker, Leia, Han in there, and I think it worked well. I think it was the perfect formula for this, this new sequel of the Star Wars franchise. And I loved it. When I watched it, first thing I watched it in the cinema, and I was just like overjoyed watching it. And I, still to this day, I think it is the best one in that trilogy of the new Star Wars movies. I think, I've heard people over the years say it's kind of like a carbon copy of A New Hope. I can kind of get what people are saying by that. I can understand, but for me, it's still its own original thing. It's its own original story. It's got some great new characters in there with Kylo Ren. Rey and Finn. They're not the best characters in the world. I think Kylo Ren is certainly, in this movie, the best one. I think probably Finn in this movie. This is his best movie, for sure. And there's certain elements I would have liked to have seen moving forward. We didn't really see play out, but yeah, I think it's just a great movie. I think it's a great movie. John Williams returning to do the score. Great score. This is a score I listened to for ages. Just like walking around when I was like walking back into the place, I'd have the score on. I think it's great. J.J. Abrams was the perfect person to direct this movie, and I think he just hit out the park and give us an awesome film to watch as a Star Wars fan. Now, the last 10 out of 10 movie I'm going to discuss today is Robin Williams in Jumanji. That is right, Jumanji. This is a 1995 movie now. This is one I would constantly watch growing up. Superb film, this one. Basically, the plot of the movie is Robin Williams' character as a kid is sucked into this. In fact, he finds this like board game at this building site and then takes it home and he plays it with like this girl he knows, like, who lives near him, like a friend, and he gets sucked into this board game, and he then comes out like 30 odd years later, I think it is, when these new set of kids are playing the same board game, and then we see the world of Jumanji, this board game, coming into the real world, and we're seeing like animals and big spiders and like hunters coming out of this board game, and they've got to basically complete the board game to get rid of all the sort of like the Jumanji world from the real world back into the board game. And it is just look, it's a family friendly movie, this one, but it's definitely got some moments in it where you're like, oh, this is quite scary, and quite like I think like the moment when him as a kid getting sucked into the board game is quite scary as a kid, and then you're thinking, like, imagine if that happens to you as a kid and you get sucked into this jungle where there's like these dangerous animals and stuff like that. I think like parts like that are really scary, and then you got this hunter guy who's hunting after him and stuff like that, and then there's some scary moment, like I think like the big spiders in it and stuff like that. There's definitely moments where you think, wow, this is quite like, it's not like super horror heavy, but there's like moments where you're thinking, this is maybe for young kids, it's maybe not quite the family friendly movie it's labeled as, but I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it growing up. I think Robin Williams he's the guy, and he's awesome. Absolutely awesome. I love Robin Williams' movies, and this is one of my favourite Robin Williams movies. I've watched plenty of them over the years, but I think this is just he plays a great role in this. And I think when he comes back to the real world as well, he's trying to adjust to things and find out like that his parents are now, passed away, long passed away, and the world he came from is now gone. It's a whole new world basically. And it's just a great story, and I just think every time I watch it, I just think this is just a special movie. Absolutely a special movie, and I get a lot of joy from watching this movie. And yeah, it's for me a 10 out of 10 movie from my movie collection. If you enjoyed this video today, please do give it a like and check out the rest of the movie-related content on the channel. And let me know your thoughts on this video topic today of 10 out of 10 movies in my collection, part 4. What did you think of my selection, ladies and gents? And what are some of your 10 out of 10 movies from your own collection as well? Let me know all your thoughts. Thank you very much for watching this video, ladies and gents. Remember to spread a bit of movie cheer, and as always, I will see you next time.